This recording should be played at a high volume, especially under the light of a full moon.
It lurks in the wake of desiccated trees, razor-sharp fangs glistening in the moonlight, claws where its fingers used to be. A human transformed into a monster. You would call it a werewolf, but that is underappreciating the horror of the creature known as the Loup Garou. It is something different, more primal, more French. Name alone does not separate this creature from its common cousin. There is so much to uncover about what goes into this manifestation that we're going to drag it out of the darkness and into the light where it can be gazed upon in all its monstrous glory. Or we will be ruined by the experience. So what are the origins of the Loup Garou? And what makes it the mist's most fearsome predator? And for whom does it lurk? Lurking within the pages of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, the face of this massive beast pops out at us. And that's certainly a fine French werewolf. But what's not printed here are the details that make old Loup a standout amongst his peers. What makes it tick? Its strengths, its weaknesses. What does separate it from the classic werewolf? So, I want to speak of a larger legend. Let's learn how a species works, how affliction takes hold, how legends are formed. And in doing that, together we will learn about the real-life, well-documented event that paralyzed the country and to this day is still unresolved. You will be shocked by what you can take from this real-life event. And what is a monster without style? For this, we need look no further than the location of this real-life monstrosity, France, in the 1700s. And although we already know there's much more to this creature than what we call it, there's still no better way to start our conversation about what makes a Loup Garou than to ask the question, what's in a name? Loup Garou, or in the Old French, Loup Garou, was first used circa 1580. While loup is clearly defined as wolf, garou is a little trickier. In the Old French, garou was a word for a man who could transform himself into a wolf. So it would seem that the word was not borrowed. Garou has only ever been used to describe a werewolf. That means there was a need at some point to create such a word. Somebody witnessed something so unique it required creation. That's powerful. The Loup Garou was the prototypical boogeyman in rural France. As we will discuss later when we get into the events at Gévaudan, this creature was said to hunt down all manner of misbehaving populace. The children that did not obey their parents, the Catholics who broke the rules of Lent, the poor whose tithings were insufficient. In the less cultured regions of the country, where superstition was still the driving force, any manner of tragedy could be blamed on this creature. But that does not mean that there wasn't something to fear. A creature really lurking out there in the darkness. When the French came to the Americas, their legends and superstitions came with them. This is why even today the legends of the Loup Garou permeate Cajun culture. But there was no one story of the Loup Garou. The tales and the specifics varied greatly from family to family, but the core elements always remained. Themes of a monster hiding just below the surface, waiting for the right conditions to be set free. Themes of secrets and guilt and atonement. Stories of curses and transformations. Depending on the stories you read, once transformed, turning back into a human is a mixed bag. After 101 days, the Loup Garou could bite another human, thereby passing the curse along to them. The most interesting way I found to turn back was you set 13 pennies out on your doorstep. Legends say the Garou can only count to 12, So the number 13 will confuse them so bad the frustration is enough to break the curse and return them to human form. And of course, for transformations, you always had the changing of the moon. But if transformations are the common language of all were creatures, is how one becomes afflicted no more than a regional dialect? Same powers, same rules? Or is there more to it than that? Maybe each method of affliction is a language unto itself. Lycanthropy shows no prejudice in who or what it can affect. So while these rules apply generally to all shape changers, our focus will be on the werewolf. These creatures are not a monolith. There isn't just one type, one way to be a werewolf. And with these divergence, each phenotype suffers its own unique challenges, its own set of triggers, and their own degrees of self-control. The good doctor deemed these pathologic, maledictive, and true. True will be the form most important to our conversation, so of course, we shall save that for last. Pathologic were creatures would resemble most closely the prototypical werewolf. A human in life, but through surviving an attack by a werewolf, they could become infected. And once infected and truly mutated, they would be left unaware that they now possess a second form of two possibilities. A hybrid monstrosity we know as a werewolf, or the form of a common wolf. The wolf would be relatively hard to pick out from one not infected. It will only grow slightly larger than prototypical. The werewolf creature, however, would grow in size and strength and ferocity, but they will both suffer a total disassociation from conscious awareness. The beast will no longer possess any hints of the personality it once had either. He will either take on the behavior of the wolf, or the werewolf will adapt its core bestial aspects to create what passes for a personality, but a personality that is blinded by aggression and hatred. A blinding hunger will befall the creature immediately after transfiguration. The beast will attack anyone or anything it encounters. Unfortunately, its victims at the start end up being the ones closest to it, especially if they are unaware of an impending transformation. A transformation that may be triggered in a multitude of ways. The easiest trigger to point to is the appearance of the moon. There are also emotional triggers like anger or fear, or worse yet, love. For some creatures, the trigger can be pain or proximity to violence. And in some truly unfortunate souls, the very sunrise or sunset every day can bring out the beast. The pathologic werebeast will experience a sense of muscle tearing from its bone, the agony of its skeleton stretching or shrinking to accommodate its new form, its senses going wild from the flood of the rush of new inputs, a blinding desire to destroy and to feed its ravenous hunger, and the rush of devouring its prey after first delighting in its screams of horror. But the pathological werewolf will remember none of this. Upon reverting to its normal form, all memories of their time transformed will be pushed down into his subconscious, only to be recalled as terrible dreams of unimaginable horror. Only the cuts and bruises sustained will remain in the harsh reality of daylight. Most will refuse to acknowledge the obvious links between the nightmares and any mysterious injuries, though the guilt will always lie just below the surface. They can bury their clothes, they can wash away the blood, but the guilt of their actions will sit heavy forever on their souls. The maledictive were creatures will be affected with the loss of memory and the range of other symptoms as well, though the method of contacting the affliction differs. Whether obtained through some evil act, cast down from a malignant deity, or spoken from the dying lips of an enemy, it is a curse that forces the maledictive transformation. There are the curses of vengeance. Someone is blamed for an injustice against someone else. A surviving family member murders a rabbit under a full moon while crying out to the dark powers, and bam, a were-rabbit is born. Overtly magical curses, however, are rather extreme cases. They're rare due to the fact that only a malignant deity would inflict this curse upon someone. Then there are self-inflicted curses caused by specific, very evil deeds. The consequences of those deeds hits home the hardest when illustrated through the act of storytelling. So here it goes. Talbot was a servitor of a noble in Darkon. Soft-spoken and callow, he was unable to defend himself from any accusations thrown his way, even if innocent of any wrongdoings. Existing in stark contrast was his lord Meritu. This man was a verbal and emotional antagonist, abusing Talbot at every opportunity. While a typical Gar would have responded in anger, this meek soul endured the torment. For years, it would tear the soul of this man. Every slight, every accusation, another claw stripping away his ability to stay his vengeance. But when the day of reckoning arrived, rather than face the source of his torment, Meritu, Talbot would unleash his anger on the Lord's young children, treating them like common vermin, feeding them full of poison, and murdering them in their own home. Talbot would then flee like a rat in the night, and apparently some dark agency with a sense of irony would respond by cursing him and turning him into a were-rat. Now, every night at sunset, he transforms, and he is able to unleash all his rage. Unfortunately, he no longer has control over who it's directed at. In the end, though, Talbot only had himself to blame. But the last and most important phenotype to our exploration of the Loup Garou can't blame themselves. Because true lycanthropes were just born this way. It's now that we arrive at the heritable lycanthrope that we can see the separation in power. The traits we are about to discuss belong both to the true werewolf and to the Loup Garou. These are their similarities. It's important to recognize that while all Loup Garou are true lycanthropes, not all true lycanthropes are Loup Garou. True lycanthropy can neither be cured nor passed to others through an attack. It's a self-contained system. You have to be blessed enough to be born a member of this species. Make no mistake about it, they are a species unto themselves, their own society with their own rules of conduct. This is made possible by the lack of memory loss. No matter what form they take, they will remain in total control of their consciousness. I'll say that again, because it's their cornerstone. They always maintain their sense of self, no matter which form they are in. In human form, they can blend into society, though they will never fully integrate. They may take wives and have families, though they'll usually choose to do so with another of their kind. It is the only way to properly propagate their species. If they do mate with someone who isn't infected, the results, well, they can be mixed. Sired from a male, the offspring will have a half and half chance of avoiding the scourge altogether. Though, after realizing this, the father may return and attack his child, causing an infection later in their life. This is especially cruel. As noted, the true werewolf cannot create another true werewolf through an attack. So, what good would coming back and attacking an offspring do? Well, unfortunately, the survivor of that attack would be subject to the rules regarding pathological infection, dooming his offspring to the same fate as that of a common target. This applies to anyone the true werewolf attacks, not just its kin. If the mother procreates with an uninfected person, well, there is no chance of escaping some form of the affliction. Half of the time, the offspring will become a true lycanthrope. Half of the time, a common infected. But it's only at the time of the first transformation that that distinction can be made. Where transformation for the maledictive and pathological are agonizing and terrifying, the transformation of the Loup Garou can be one of transcendent ecstasy, and the process can be instigated at will. There is no need for a trigger when it comes to the true lycanthrope. The human form of the beast will always maintain the same appearance. They cannot use their transformation as a way to create disguises. Now, this appearance may very well include features that appear remarkably lupine in nature. Slightly pointy ears, abnormal amount of body hair, exaggerated fingernails, just little hints of some sort of inhumane nature. Over the years, monster hunters have been tricked into believing that these features are a telltale sign of the Loup Garou in disguise, leading more than one innocent of being accused and ostracized from a community. But what too many overzealous dispensers of justice fail to realize is that while these features may exist in the transformed, they are far from the only ones who possess them. These details alone are insufficient to label one a true lycanthrope. Now, the second aspect or form of the true lycan would present the same challenges in detection. They would have a constant look about them anytime they were to transform into a wolf. Now, a normal true lycanthrope could blend in with a pack of their kind easily, although some hunters say it's only through studying a pack and looking for signs of abnormal intelligence, signs of anomalous watchfulness, that you can pick one out of a pack of regular wolves. However, this may happen only if the transformed wants it to. A true werewolf in this form has the ability to act solely on its animal instincts, to relinquish control while still maintaining its sense of self and awareness. In this way, an observer would see no differentiation. The pack, however, will always recognize the beast and submit to it, making the true lycanthrope its leader, because game recognizes game. But the true Loup Garou's second form is slightly different. It is not the form of a common wolf. They are far too imposing for that. Roaming around the lowlands, you will find these Loup Garous take the form of a warwolf, larger and more resilient than normal. They will still travel in packs, but now only with others of their own kind. Lurking in the higher elevations and in the mountains, you will find the Loup Garou's largest form of all, the horrific direwolf. Gigantic abominations capable of unspeakable atrocities. This creature is so formidable that it may cast off the protection the pack provides, and it usually goes out on the hunt all alone. But the last form is the most dreadful, the half-man, half-beast, having both the features of the animal and the human, creating a horrific, unnatural blend. That blend will be consistent every time the creature transforms. This is similar to the pathologic in look, but with the ability to retain its consciousness, the ability to use tools and weapons, and the ability to speak, which may be the most horrific prospect of all. This hulking beast not only bearing down on you with its teeth and its claws, but can also tell you how good it thinks you're going to taste. Pride may force you to stand your ground, to fight back, but to do so requires special equipment. Facing off against the lowland variety of the Loup Garou would only work if you were in possession of a blade made of silver, or perhaps a magical weapon. Even then, you would do no more damage than the total enchanted bonus of the weapon. And it gets worse once you've traveled into the mountains, more deadly, more dangerous. You need to come equipped with hard-to-come-by gold-encrusted weaponry. Now, if that weren't bad enough, they are much more resilient to magic, and every bit of damaged flesh regenerates, almost to the point of healing in real time as you attack. There is very little that can threaten them one-on-one, so of course they will tell you how good you are going to taste. They want to cause as much fear as possible, and if they're choosing to inflict fear, there has to be a reason. So, what drives the Loup Garou? Many people believe that the Loup Garou are nothing more than dumb, ravenous beasts, and I assure you, nothing could be further from the truth. This misconception most likely exists to help minimize the threat that these creatures represent. It is reassuring to see them as unintelligent animals, capable of terrors and horrors, but driven by no more than animal instinct. How much more terrifying do they become when they are paired with human intelligence? And since they possess intelligence, they are surely capable of having desires. First and foremost, these creatures are individuals. We would never say that all humans have the same driving forces. Well, this same thing applies to the Loup Garou. they show much of the same disparities and similarities as do humans. But whatever they are, the most central aspect of their philosophy is survival. And for that means the consumption of raw human flesh. Therefore, the hunt is at the base of all their behavior. This does not mean they are all consumed by it. Dr. Van Richten uses this analogy to drive that point home. Humans eat meat to survive, but does that mean that humans' every waking moment will be spent concentrating on finding its next meal? Does that imply that humans think of nothing more than food? Of course not. The same holds true for the Loup Garou. One of the greatest motivations in their life is then continuing the facade that they are in fact normal humans. Some create such cunning, complete masquerades that their ability to hunt is then infringed upon. This flies directly in the face of the notion that they only maintain these disguises to get closer to their prospective meals, always having a ready food source nearby. So, if that's not the case, there must be an additional benefit to their deceit. Perhaps it is a certain satisfaction knowing that they are capable of this deceit. Further proof that they are in fact the more intelligent creatures, the more fearsome predator, smarter and more cunning than the pitiful humans around them, superior in every way. The human side of the Loup Garou, however, may still crave power, wealth, and privilege and comfort, and their affliction provides them with many advantages in the means to these ends. Some have led thieves' guilds surrounding themselves with followers unaware of their true nature. Others pursue outwardly legitimate positions, such as public office, only to have their opposition killed by the claws of a mysterious ravenous monster. And this person may take the stance of ridding the town of such a beast if elected. Whatever path they choose to take, the root goal is still spreading fear, pain, and suffering. Some may be so blatant to instigate whole waves of terror in a region, innocents slaughtered, families destroyed, all-out war on a community. Others enjoy more subtle schemes, starting out with acts that are mildly disturbing and slowly escalating into out-and-out atrocities. They create an environment of growing fear and paranoia that paralyzes a community, driving good men and women to the breaking point. That makes them truly the most fearsome predators. And there's no better example than this than the real-life, still unresolved case where we draw so much of our inspiration for this creature from the Beast of Gevaudan. From 1674 to 1767, a mysterious beast ran roughshod over the province of Gévaudan, France. Its body count totaled over 500 people, mostly women and children, and everyone was powerless to stop it. Gévaudan, France was a remote, isolated area whose forests were said to have been enchanted and full of the supernatural. Off of the back of the 7 Years' War, everyone was feeling the squeeze. Most of the peasants in that area were getting by tending to their sheep and selling off the wool. The livestock was their only means of support. The mysterious beast would make its first appearance in the summer of 1764. A woman named Marie-Jeanne Vallée, remember that name? She was tending her cattle while the beast approached from the forest. Marie, however, contrary to what you may be thinking, was not the first victim, as these badass bovines surrounded her and would not let the beast get close. The beast would approach, the cows would close around Jean, repelling him. It would continue this way until the beast finally ran off. Now you may be thinking, why didn't the beast run a train through these proto-hamburgers? Well, one common thread in all the attacks would be that the beast never attacked the livestock. It only went after people. Now, shortly after this incident, on June 30th, the beast would claim the life of 14-year-old Jean Boulet. That would be the first official victim. On August 8th, its second would be claimed, another 14-year-old girl. From August through September, more victims were reported. Soon, terror gripped the population as the beast preyed on women and children and sometimes lone men as they tended to their livestock. One woman was killed not 30 feet away from her front door, and always the victims were targeted in the head and the neck region, and always the livestock was left unharmed. Now, witnesses who saw the beast said it could walk on 2 legs, perform astounding leaps, repel bullets, and return from the dead after being struck and wounded. Now, because of these supernatural traits, many would believe the beast was an instrument of God's wrath. That would lead the Bishop of Mende on December 31st to call for prayers of penance, believing the monster was a scourge sent by God to punish man for its sins. The commandment of the Bishop of Mende remains in history under that name, so go look it up. It's real. All the priests in the diocese had to proclaim it to their faithful at their services. But in spite of all the increase in prayers, the attacks, surprisingly, still continued. On January 12th, 1765, a group of children led by Jacques Portefeuille were attacked by the beast. One of their group was dragged off, but rather than be accepting of the boy's fate, the remaining 7 would band together and chased after the beast, recovering their friends thanks to Jacques' bravery. This finally got the attention of King Louis, who would be so impressed that he would reward Portefeuille with 300 livres and his friends with 350. I guess the ringleader gets more, but he would also give them full state's education and promise to finally do something to help, because by this point, the goings-on at Gévaudan had become an international story and a source of national embarrassment, as if the French needed the English to make fun of them for anything else. The king would send First Captain Duhamel of the Clermont Prince Dragoons to assist. Now, he would, during the hunts, injure the beast on several occasions, but all of his efforts would come up short, and the beast continued to kill. Duhamel would pull out all the stops. He would leave the bodies of the victims in place, fill them with poisons in case the beast came back to feed. Now, this would lead the people to start hiding the number of official attacks. They do that because the bodies were being used as bait instead of being buried receiving the sacraments. The captain, being the smart man that he was, would also look at the instances of women being attacked, and he would start dressing his soldiers up in drag, leaving them out in the open in hopes of baiting the beast. But as far as we know, not a single drag queen was mauled. As many as 30,000 people at this time were conscripted to hunt down this monster. And in the process, almost the entire wolf population of Gévaudan was destroyed, and yet the beast killed on, always one step ahead of Duhamel. And I tell you, the king would not stand for this failure. He would relieve Duhamel of his duties and instead send a father and son wolf hunting team, Jean-Charles and Jean-Francois d'Anville, where Duhamel would try and use brute force the d'Anvilles, believing that this was probably some sort of Eurasian wolf, would employ more huntsman-like tactics, stalking their prey with a group of bloodhounds. For 4 months they would pursue the beast, but again, the killings would continue. How could this happen? How could a world-renowned wolf hunters not catch up to this creature? Perhaps because they were not hunting a wolf as we know it. Now, history is not clear as to whether they were forced out or whether they were so frustrated that they just walked away, but they would be replaced in June 1765 by Francois Antoine, the king's personal lieutenant of the hunt. This was getting serious for old Louis. If this guy couldn't get it done, it was a personal affront to the king. People would have even less respect for him than they already did, and it would not only be the people of Gévaudan that the beast killed, it would be old Louis's reputation itself. But let's jump to some heroism for a second. It wasn't all doom and gloom after all. On August 11th, Antoine would organize a great hunt. A maiden named Jean-Marie Vallée, remember her from the first attack? Well, she was crossing a footbridge over a stream with another young lady when the beast jumped up from underneath of it and lunged at Jean-Marie. Not having her bovine protectors around this time didn't mean she was going to be caught unprotected. This time, Jean was packing. She took the 6-foot spear she now carried with her and plunged it into the chest of the beast. The beast reared back in pain, let out a cry, and dove back into the river, disappearing from view. Antoine would hear word of this and rushed to Jean. Now, when he and his men arrived, they found the spear was indeed covered in blood, and traces of fur and flesh were strewn about the bridge. Jeanne-Marie would be compared to Joan of Arc, and she would earn the nickname the Maid of Gévaudan. There's actually a statue built to her honor, and you can see that here. Not to be outdone, and seeking to bring an end to all this madness, on the 21st of September, Antoine would kill a large gray wolf, measuring 31 inches high and weighing over 130 pounds. Antoine would declare, "I've never seen a wolf that could be compared to this one. Hence, we believe this could be that fearsome beast that caused so much damage." The animal did possess scars and damage, and it seemed to match the description of some of the people who were unlucky enough to have seen it. Now, Antoine's son would have the beast loaded onto his horse, and he rode off for Paris. He arrived in Versailles on October 1st, hailed as a hero. The stuffed beast would be paraded around as a symbol of the king's justice, and all was well in Gévaudan. Right? Well, one thing I neglected to mention is when Antoine had the beast cut open, they found no human remains in its stomach, which means it had not, in fact, fed on any human flesh. Antoine hid this fact from the crown, and it would come back to haunt everyone. Now, November passed without any attacks, and the people began to believe that the beast was, in fact, dead. The king's men would retreat from Gévaudan, declaring, "We will no longer hear anything related to the beast. Case closed, Louis out." But December would bring rumors of new attacks. A failed attack on 2 boys would be a warning to the people of Gévaudan that the rumors of the beast's demise were greatly exaggerated. A dozen more deaths were reported as panic ensued around the region. Nobody knew if these attacks were a result of wolves or if the beast had in fact returned. Now, doubts would be removed when Monsieur de Monalac would write a letter to the attendant of the king on January 1st, 1766, informing His Majesty that the beast had in fact returned. Returned? Or perhaps was never destroyed in the first place. But the king would no longer hear of the beast that he had conquered. The matter was closed. He ordered all the papers to no longer report on any of the attacks that occurred in Gévaudan. The region was all on its own. In March 1766, the attacks multiplied. The towns, knowing that the courts would not help them, organized hunts. They poisoned dogs to use as live bait, and they tripled down on their prayers. But the beast continued its attacks through 1766. Its method had changed some. It had become a little more cautious, taking a little less chances. But finally, on the 19th of June, in 1767, while on a hunt organized by the Marquis d'Appshire, a pious farmer named Jean Chastel would come face to face with the beast. But Jean was prepared. The why is lost to history. But Jean Chastel, prior to going out on the hunt, he would melt down Virgin Mary blessed metals. He would create what is debatably considered the first silver bullets, for he believed it was only a silver bullet fired from a pious gun that could ever bring an end to the beast. Picture it. There he was. The beast was no more than 50 yards away. Jean Chastel said his prayers, loaded his gun, aimed, and fired, striking the beast in the torso. The beast reared, let out a howl, and charged towards Chastel. Another shot, another strike. The beast fell mid-stroke and slid to a stop just feet before reaching the hunter. And a local farmer, the pious man with the silver bullets, had killed the beast. The body was taken to the Chateau Bisque so the Marquis d'Appshire could prepare it for transportation to the king. They would show him what the real beast was and who actually killed it. But the French heat had other plans. Lacking any way to properly preserve it, by the time it reached Versailles, it was far too decomposed to be studied and was immediately buried in an unmarked grave. But was that the truth? Was the body really too decomposed? Or did the king refuse to even acknowledge anything other than the story that he had sanctioned? What was the Beast of Gevaudan really? The truth is, we don't know. And it doesn't matter. What matters is this is the energy you need to bring to the Loup Garou, the beast that terrorizes an entire countryside, that attacks without mercy, but regular heroes have a chance to fend off. A creature that, though it seems unstoppable, with the right preparation and equipment, even it can be defeated, but it's gonna leave a trail of many bodies in the wake, because the Loup Garou is the Ravenloft's most fearsome predator, and ask not for whom it lurks for thee. Thank you all so much for watching. I'd like to thank two people at this point. Gangrel442003, who on my first video left this comment, and Andrew Gothias from the Mr. Ravenloft for this suggestion. This one's for y'all. It was from watching The Brotherhood of the Wolf that led me down the Gévaudan trail. You should definitely give it a watch, and I assure you, it is a real, true story. If you've watched this far, double thank you. You know the stuff to do if you want to, and you will see me soon. You mean a lot to me. Don't get lost in the mist.
Bon vivant, nouveau riche, je ne sais quoi. S'il vous plaît, c'est la vie. Femme fatale, répertoire. Yes, des résistances. Excuse-moi, concierge.
Give me the eye thing. And now slap your shoulder. Yeah.